from the West Bank to the East, and everywhere in between. Jerusalem News Network brings you all the news you need to know when you need to know it, bringing you the news of today. Good News Production Studios, JNN's most trusted news sources, Tally Akerton and Jill Journalista.
Good day, Jerusalem. I'm Tally Akerton.
And I'm Jill Journalista. Hope your Passover was a blessed one.
Earlier this week, we reported that a man named Jesus, claimed to be the Son of God, was greeted on his way to Jerusalem with a large parade. An excited crowd laid down palm leaves and sang songs of praise. Then later in the week, on the evening of the Passover, in fact, this same Jesus was arrested by Roman soldiers at the direction of Jewish leaders and sentenced to die with the help of the Judean governor, Pontius Pilate.
That's right, Jill. After he was crucified on Golgotha outside the city center, it looked like it was all over for the Jesus movement, as it became known in social media circles. But now we're getting reports from some who claim that the Jesus fellow is alive and kicking. Let's go live to JNN's own Lila Field Lady.
Tally, I'm here with Mary, a resident of the small seaside town of Magdala, and her friends Joanna and Mary, the mother of James. Mary Magdalene, is it true you're a follower of this Jesus fellow?
Yes, for several years.
And no doubt you had a strong reaction to his crucifixion. How did that make you feel?
I was crushed. I couldn't stop crying. None of us could.
I was there too, and Mary, James' mother, even Jesus' mother was there.
It wasn't just that Jesus was really killed, it was that we felt our cause, our purpose was over. All the amazing things Jesus taught us, all the miracles he did, well, we couldn't understand why he didn't use some of God's power to bring himself down from the cross.
But now you're saying that Jesus is not dead, even though you saw him die. What makes you so convinced of that?
Well, the day after the Passover Sabbath, we all went to the tomb with spices for the odor, you know. We hoped the Roman guards would be willing for us to help us roll away the stone, but when we got there, the stone was already rolled away.
We thought, oh no, somebody stole our Lord's body.
What did you do?
Well, we were getting up the nerve to go in when two guys sort of appeared out of nowhere, and their clothes were sort of glowing like the sky during a lightning storm, you know? But it was daytime, like practically right after dawn. My goodness, we were terrified.
What happened then?
We were so afraid. We fell to the ground and hit our faces. Then one of the guys asked us why were we looking for the living among the dead. It was so weird. He said that Jesus wasn't there. He has risen. We didn't understand what that meant.
Did you think the men were scamming you?
Well, we weren't sure what to think. Then the other guy said the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it does. Because as soon as he said it, we remembered that Jesus had said it to us when we were back in Galilee. So it must have been one of his prophecies come to pass.
That seems unbelievable.
Yeah, well, the men in our group didn't believe it either. We ran back to the house where everyone was staying and told the others, but they thought our story seemed like nonsense.
Well, it really does.
I know, but it made Peter curious enough to run back to the tomb and check it out. All they found was an empty tomb and some linen strips all over the ground. He couldn't think of any other logical reasons for them to be there.
Was that the end of your story?
No, this is really the beginning. Jesus is risen.
Well, Tally and Jill, it's an unbelievable story that definitely needs more witnesses. It seems we should track down this Peter guy and get more information. This is Lila Field Lady reporting for JNN. Back to you, Tally.
Thank you, Lila. Over with you, Jill.
Viewers, I'm sure that you will agree that this story sounds questionable. So stay tuned for our next report from Olivia on site on the road to Emmaus.
Jill, I have with me here two folks who swear they saw the allegedly crucified Jesus and well while walking here from Jerusalem to this village. Can you tell us your names and what brought you here today?
I'm Cleopas.
And I'm Felix. We were walking home to Emmaus after spending the Passover week in Jerusalem. You heard what happened there with Jesus, right?
I heard there are reports of a man named Jesus who was condemned and killed by the Romans for his crimes against the empire, which is not dead but still alive.
Crimes against the empire. All Jesus ever did was try to turn us back to God, teach us a better way to live and honor our Father in heaven. It wasn't just the Romans who killed him, it was the Sanhedrin, Jewish ruling council, who couldn't stand someone telling the truth about the hypocrisy. Crimes indeed.
Now, Cleopas, people will know the truth soon enough without you have a cow about it. Jesus taught us he did not come to judge, and neither should we. Besides, we didn't even recognize him when he was walking right beside us.
What do you mean he was walking right beside you?
So there we were, walking towards Emmaus, and talking about everything that had happened since Jesus entered Jerusalem, about a week ago. His triumphal entry into the city, his teachings in the temple,
How he used a whip to drive money changers and merchants out of the temple courts.
yes, all that. Anyway, a man starts walking next to us. I'm not sure where he came from. He was just kind of there. And we hadn't passed no travel in like at least an hour.
And he didn't think that was strange?
Well, you gotta understand that most of the women had already been telling a story about an empty tomb and angels appearing. And we'd seen Jesus perform a miracle once.
We were at this house where Jesus was teaching, and it was packed. Then these guys cut a hole in the roof and lowered their friend through.
And Jesus healed him. Guy was paralyzed, and he just stood up and walked at Jesus' command. And got his sins forgiven too. So we've seen a lot of weird things being followed of Jesus' no. Guy appearing out of nowhere didn't seem that big of a deal.
So you say this man was Jesus?
We didn't realize it at first. We asked him if he knew what had been happening in Jerusalem. He didn't seem to, so we started to tell him. But then he started teaching us about all the prophecies of Jesus. He was really smart.
Well, he was Jesus.
Yeah. Anyway, when we got to the turnoff to go into town, we talked him into coming to our house and joining us for a bite to eat. As soon as we sat down at the table for dinner, he blessed the food, gave it to us, and he opened our eyes.
We just knew.
Knew what?
Knew it was Jesus. Then he disappeared.
Where did he go?
I don't know. He was like hopping the whole time he was talking. Who could hopping, you know?
Not really.
And then this one here says, we got to go back to Jerusalem right away and tell the others.
Well, we did. The brothers didn't believe what Mary and the other woman had seen at Jesus' tomb, and we had evidence.
But it was night. I was tired. It was so far.
It wasn't that far, old friend.
7 miles in the dark?
Yeah.
That is an amazing story. As you can see, Tally, just some pretty fantastical stories about Jesus are coming to light. I've heard other rumors about him as well.
Olivia, I don't mean to cut you off, but we've got a live feed from Paula Press, who has located Peter, a reported leader among Jesus' followers, and another man, both of whom claim to have seen Jesus alive after his crucifixion, in content that many of their friends did as well. For more on this breaking story, let's go to Paula.
Thanks, Tally. This is Simon Peter Bar Jonah, a leader among Jesus' remaining followers. With him is Thomas, another man who accompanied Jesus on his travels, teaching and preaching all over Judea. Now, Peter, you actually denied being a follower of Jesus just a few days ago. Did you not?
Yes, I did, Paula, and of that I am very ashamed. I don't have a good excuse. I was just scared of being arrested too. It was not my proudest moment, and I'm reminded of it every morning right before dawn, and when the neighborhood roosters start crowing.
But I understand you have changed your story. Can you tell us why?
Earlier today, two of our friends from Emmaus, Cleopas and Felix, came to the house where a bunch of us have been staying since the crucifixion. They told us this incredible story
Incredible?
about walking home with Jesus, but not recognizing him and then recognizing him over dinner.
It was incredible.
And while I was asking questions and trying to better understand, Jesus himself appeared right in the very room where we were.
So we just walked in?
No, I mean, he appeared. The doors were locked because we were trying not to get arrested by Roman authorities. And Jesus just appeared.
It was incredible.
Did you think you were seeing a ghost?
We did. Then he let Thomas here touch the wounds in his hands and feet where he'd been nailed to the cross, and then cut in his side where the soldiers stabbed him with a spear while he was on the cross to make sure he was dead.
And you touched his wounds?
It was incredible.
What happened next?
He said he was hungry, so he gave him some fish to eat.
He was hungry?
I guess being raised from the dead gives you an appetite, and I mean, really, he probably hadn't eaten since Thursday when we all shared an early Passover dinner because he got arrested not too long after that.
So he ate it then?
He reminded us of the prophecies about himself and then really opened our minds to understand the scriptures. I don't think I've learned that much since I was a young boy at temple school.
It was incredible.
Did he say anything else? What will he be doing next, now that he's returned from the dead?
It's not really what he'll be doing as much as what we'll be doing. He told us to stay in Jerusalem until we receive God's promise, then we'll be going out and sharing all this good news, the message of Jesus.
And what's this God's promise you mentioned?
It was incredible.
Does he ever say anything else?
Not really, man, a few words. God's promise is a gift Jesus told us about the night he was arrested. He talked a lot over dinner that evening about God sending us an advocate, a spirit of truth. He called it to dwell with us forever, and he said it would come with power. I can hardly wait.
I'll bet you can't. We've heard a number of wild claims in these interviews. If they are true, it could herald a new era of hope for those who believe in and follow this Jesus. But what will it mean for those who don't? It's clear that Peter, Thomas, and the other people who have been interviewed for this broadcast definitely believe what they claim to have seen with their eyes. For those of us who haven't seen Jesus, we may have to rely on those who have to share the redeeming story of faith in following Jesus, the one true Son of God. For Jerusalem News Network, this is Paula Press. Back to you, Tally and Jill.
This has certainly been one of the strangest news days we have had in a while, Jill.
Agreed, Tally. These followers of Jesus have a powerful story to tell.
In closing, we'll leave you with a quote from the prophet Isaiah concerning our promised Messiah. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We are all like sheep have gone astray. Each one of us has turned our way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all.
That sounds just like Jesus, who many people have seen him alive after his public execution. That is some good news. From Jerusalem News Network, I am Jill Journalista.
And I'm Tally Ankerton saying seek the kingdom first and don't worry about tomorrow.